Commissioners, if you find your seats, it is now 6:01. We will open our public hearing. Thank everybody for coming out. Mr. Administrator, you have the floor, my man.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, your first public hearing is an amendment, or is the first and only public hearing to consider an administrative amendment in the Southwood Development DRI. This would allow for assisted living facilities in the development, and this would require both the City and County Commission approvals. Ultimately, staff is supportive of the request, and there are no speakers.
There are no speakers. Is there a motion for staff recommendation on the item? Option 1 has been moved by Commissioner Lindley, seconded by Commissioner Dozier. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. All those opposed? Motion carries 4-3 with Commissioners Deloge, Commissioner Jackson, and Commissioner Daly, or Chairman Daly, out of chambers. Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is your first and only public hearing to consider an ordinance amending Chapter 4 of your Code of Laws, the creation of an animal abuser registry, and the requirement of attended tethering for animals. As you know, Commissioners, you're all very familiar with this item. It's based on your previous direction. While there appears to be a lot of interest in the community, we do not have speaker cards on this item, but we're happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you very much.
Motion for staff recommendation on the item?
So moved.
Staff recommendation has been moved by Commissioner Dozier, seconded by Commissioner Lindley. Thank you all for coming out. This is an important issue for us all. We appreciate you coming out to join us tonight. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye.
Mr. Vice Chair, people want to have a moment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had a computer with me.
Can't see, but it's.
Yeah, Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Those of you in the audience, he's not sitting in front of the right computer since our chairman isn't here today. No, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's worked so hard on this. This is a pretty big day, both on tethering and the animal abuse registry. Really appreciate the efforts of the whole community on this, and I am thrilled that we are here. Mr. County Administrator, your staff has worked very hard on this and other issues related to the animal ordinance in the recent years, and we're in a really good place. So thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Commissioner Lindley.
I really just want to echo that to have an ordinance that now requires tethered animals to have people in attendance, and that they cannot just be, animals cannot be left unattended all day, even if there is possibly some water and some food available. This gives our ordinance a lot more strength, and I really appreciate the public's work on this ordinance. And Carol Aldridge, very much thank you for your professional assistance and encouragement. So we're all good to go, I think.
Thank you, Commissioner Lindley. To the supporters here, Commissioner Lindley played a pretty big role in getting this before us. We appreciate your leadership on it. Commissioner Proctor.
Chairman, the schedule of fines and all of that we had presented, like $450 if your dog bites somebody else's dog, is that actual, or was that hypothetical?
Mr. Administrator.
I think I read somewhere that it was $450 if your dog bites somebody else's dog.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think Kara can address that.
Yes, I can. That is correct. If your dog is running loose and bites somebody, the fine is $450.
I saw $450 if your dog on the first time. $450 if it bites a person, if your dog bites another dog. It's at the table. Is the table available? I didn't bring my book in here, but I read it somewhere. That it's, and I thought that these fines were very high.
I have a copy.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I see. Yeah, thank you. $450 if it's running at large with unprovoked biting, wounding, or attacking of a domestic animal.
Commissioner Proctor, I think what I'm reading here is, and somebody can correct me, but first violation, $50 running at large, second violation, $100, and third violation running at large and thereafter was $250. That's what I'm reading.
Those were not changed. Those were not amended.
It's $450 if you bite a person and $250 if you bite an animal. Is that accurate?
I don't see 450 anywhere.
Look under code -435. I'm sorry.
Yes, it is.
435.
That is an enhancement under 4.
Okay, yes, for first offense, for a person, 450, second offense, 500 thereafter, 500 mandatory court appearance.
What does obstructing enforcement? I'm not all that familiar with some of these terms, and I don't know what obstructing. Cause that's a $50 charge, and I don't know what that means. Does that mean like poo-pooing on the grass? Is that what it is?
Obstructing enforcement is when we are moving forward with the course of our duties and somebody is trying to hide their animal from us or keep us from getting an animal that we have witnessed in violation.
What about when somebody's dog come in and do their business on your yard? How much is that?
First offense for that one would be $50.
Okay. I'm a little troubled, and I think that some of these fees are, and I don't think that the dog don't pay none, are very high. And I was really shocked by some of these fees, and I'm wondering how did you all arrive at this schedule of fees for certain of these violations?
Commissioner Pratt, the county attorney just clarified for me that these fees already exist.
I had no idea we had no fees like this.
Yes, sir.
So
Mr. Attorney, you want to speak more to the origin? Okay.
So what is it that we are being asked to do? I thought these fees are something that we're being asked to adopt.
If you'd like to bring the fees back, the county administrator said we could bring them back, but today we're being asked to, and the motion on the floor is to approve the item as is and to implement ordinance. It's strictly about the tethering today. This other part of it is already in place. So if you want a
It
specific,
merges together.
yes.
Okay. If it's there, I thought this was proposed to us as something that we were to adopt tonight. I see all of it here. I wouldn't have paid as much attention to it if I'd have known it was already on the books.
Right.
I'm not trying to take it off the books.
Okay, yeah.
It's very
The only thing is the addition of the tethering, Mr. Administrator.
And just for clarification, I was just going to say that obviously the ordinance, the new sections of the ordinance have to do with the establishment of the animal abuse registry and with the tethering prohibitions with exceptions, and the only new fees or fines rather would be associated with tethering. Everything else is already there. However, at any point the board wishes to readdress those, we'd be happy to bring those back.
Yes.
All right. This is, I really don't have time to read stuff that's already on the book. I hate that. But if it's on the book and no one is objected to these high fees, and I'll let it ride.
Thank you. Motion on the floor is for staff recommendation, made by Commissioner Dozier, I believe, seconded by Commissioner Lindley, or vice versa. Ms. Voss? Okay. All right. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Or any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Commissioner Deloge, Commissioner Jackson, and Chairman Daley out of chambers. Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, we have several speakers on non-agended items. And the first in the queue is John Hendrick.
Mr. Hendrick, name and address for the record, please, sir.
Good morning, afternoon, Commissioners, actually, evening at this point. John Hendrick, 1551 Cristobal Drive, number 1, here in Tallahassee, 32303. I've been given some additional information right before I got up here regarding that no one knew that you already were moving to try and get your climate action plan up here in front of you. We were told originally it was going to be in November, then no one had scheduled it for November, and then we were asked to come down and talk to you all about it. At least some of us were asked to talk to you about it. I'm the co-coordinator, co-organizer of the Tallahassee 35 Coalition, and of course, I think you all are very aware that we just got the city of Tallahassee to get on board doing a plan for 100% renewable energy by the year 2035. And our urgent request would be that at the soonest possible opportunity, y'all join likewise in doing that, because it only makes sense for us to be moving forward as a community with this type of effort and a unified effort for this very urgent matter that we have going on. If by us talking about it tonight, somehow we can even hurry that along even further than what was already anticipated, that would be fantastic on this. And this was basically us coming down more of a, let's just call it an ad hoc kind of thing. Some of us were just coming down to talk about it because we were informed this was a time that y'all were potentially we should be talking to you about it, if that makes any sense at all. So to the extent possible that our presence helps hurry that all along, we would like to see that done. We certainly think the city might have been more difficult initially because they're the ones with the power system. But obviously this is a community-wide effort for everything, not just energy, from electricity and the like, but also transportation and all the other ways we use energy in our community. So we would nicely urge y'all to proceed as apace as possible and as quickly as possible, trustfully in joining with the city and other entities in the community. And there's going to be others we're going to ask this too. You're just next in line. So it's good to see you all. We look forward to continuing the dialogue with all this, and you all have a good evening.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Lilly.
Thank you, John. I just want to remind those who might not have known, we do have an agenda item coming up in December to review our own climate action plan, which was passed in 2008. And I'd asked for an agenda item a couple of meetings ago. I think we all just want to hear where we are on that. And that might be a time where we will be able to open this up more. But I think we just kind of want to see where we are now. It's almost 10 years later, so.
Well, just very briefly, that's obviously a good thing. That's obviously, and it was a good thing that you were doing it for just the government. But obviously, this now would obviously, what we're talking about encompasses not just the government, but the entire community.
I understand that. It's not, I mean, that is obvious and maybe not so obvious. It's two different things, but it will give us an opportunity to discuss our world, the government piece, and also, see what else is in the universe of this topic. So,
thank you,
no despair.
We have a couple more a few more speakers on this specific topic, but since you started comment, I'll make a real quick comment. I met with Mr. Bibler on the issue, and a couple of questions I had. The first question I had was 2035 seems to be a little quick, seems to be a little fast. What I want to caution our board on is making goals without knowing exactly where we are right now, first of all, and secondly, without knowing how attainable those are. I believe in stretch goals, but I don't believe in unattainable goals. And so I like the idea of the plan, and we'll have a deeper discussion about it, I guess, when it comes back on December the 3rd. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of information to go along with it. But this idea of 100% before 2035, I'm not as much in favor of setting us up for something that we don't know for sure that we can even come close to achieving. Maybe if I knew that we were already at 70, 80%, or even 60%, I would feel a little more comfortable, but just setting a number without knowing where we're starting from makes me a little uncomfortable. So those are my comments. So, Mr. Administrator.
Chairman, no, Commissioner Lindley covered my comments. I was just going to bring you up to speed with the item coming back in December, that's all.
Thank you. Next speaker.
The next speaker is Bart Bibler.
Bart, good to see you again. Name and address for the record, please, sir.
Can you scroll down?
Bart, would you talk a little bit too about during your comments about the original plan we talked about with the timeline? I think it was like 2040 or 2050 or something like. Talk a little bit about that timeline as well, please.
Sure. Bart Bibler. I live at 3673 Mossy Creek Lane in Tallahassee. First of all, thank you, Commissioner Maddox, for meeting with me this week. And just by quick background, First of all, Mayor Gillum had written an op-ed back in Earth Day on 2016 saying that he embraced the goals of 50% clean energy by 2030, 100% by 2050. Sustainable Tallahassee wrote a letter to the mayor saying, great goals, we need a plan. And so we've continued to push for that. And of course, our objective is a community-wide plan. There are folks who are uncertain whether we can achieve 100% by 2035. My own opinion is I'm not that hung up on the date. Let's just get started. So what I would say to you is the city's made a major decision here and has set it in motion. A meeting was held today hosted by Reese Goad talking about with the Utility Citizens Advisory Committee on how this process should occur. And it was very much encouraged that they be community workshops to educate the public and get everybody understanding what's going on and understanding what the plan is and how those goals would be achieved. So I would say to you that the city has established an important motion that I wish you would respond to right away. And that would be a motion to join or a motion to hold workshops, community workshop, to begin those discussions. Because it's crucial that we all have a good understanding of how we achieve it, what it means, what are the definitions, what's the CO2 scorecard all about, how do we measure our progress over time. And so I do certainly appreciate that we're going to talk about the update of the 2008, but it is a little bit of a different animal, and I don't want to distract the discussion about what we've done versus what we're going to do. But that's my opinion, just sharing it. And, you know, that's the bottom line. I'm here as a citizen advocate trying to move this ball as fast as possible. We need it. I saw in today's paper another global record was set on CO2 emissions projected for this year. You know, we have a crisis, whether we choose to address it or not. We have a crisis. The city has started. I hope the county will right away, and I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Mr. Minister and next speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your next speaker is Richard Hopkins.
Mr. Hawkins, name and address for the record, please, sir.
Good evening. My name is Richard Hopkins. I live at 1209 Camellia Drive in Tallahassee. I'm a retired epidemiologist. That's a doctor who studies the occurrence of disease in populations. I'm retired, and I'm taking my analytic skills and my research skills and put them to work in this field of energy conservation and energy planning. Commissioner Maddox is a man after my own heart. He'd like to see more data. The main point of my talk here is to point out to you, is to draw your attention to a document that is posted on the Sustainable Tallahassee website. It's labeled a Leon County Community Carbon Dioxide Scorecard that takes a 15-year look at where we've been and where we are now, how much CO2 we're generating and how we're doing it, and what some of the factors are that contribute to the generation of carbon dioxide. I developed this document as an aid for planners. It's a living document. It can be further developed, but I do want to draw your attention to it. There are a couple of headline findings from that document that I'll just mention to you briefly. Over the last 15 years, the sum of all the CO2 we produce from buildings and from vehicles has been just about stable. Particularly since 2008, we have had flat total production of carbon dioxide, even while our population and the number of vehicles and the number of buildings has been going up. So our per capita production of CO2 has been going down. Almost all of that reduction in per capita CO2 is because the city of Tallahassee is producing electricity more efficiently. They've got better generators and more efficient, and they've switched from fuel oil to natural gas as their main fuel. So the the mix of fuels that Talcon Electric uses has changed very little. And we collectively are all driving exactly this, our vehicles exactly the same way we did 10 years ago. We're driving as many miles and we're using as much gasoline from our vehicles per capita as we were in 2008. There's a lot more detail in the report, and I hope you'll find a few minutes to pull it down and take a look at it. Thank you.
Commissioner Lilly?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Well, for one thing, I think that you'll find that we rarely color within the lines around here. So even if that subject comes up to review our climate action plan, I'm sure we'll go farther afield. And just to speak to you all tonight, I mean, I would be happy to make a motion to include a staff analysis of this to be part of our update when we get this agenda item in December, which is just a couple of weeks away. So that would be my motion, so we can take a look at this, so we will know, you know, other than just say, here's what the city did, and yeah, you guys come along, which we, you know, may want to do. We don't have a utility system. It's a little bit different. You know, we just need to know more. I think all of us need to know more.
I'll second that motion.
So that's my motion.
I'll second that motion. Any discussion on the motion on the floor? Commissioner Dozier?
Mr. Chair, I wondered if we had any other speakers on this particular
We have a couple.
subject.
Yes.
We do? Do you mind waiting on the motion until we wrap this subject? I mean, I appreciate it being on the floor. I have a couple questions, but I wanted to hear all the speakers.
Of course.
And then we can...
Mr. Administrator?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next speaker is Carol Fleischer.
Address for the record, please, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Kara Fleischer. My address is 4706 Inishier Court, Tallahassee, Florida. I am the Creation Care leader at St. Paul's United Methodist Church at Lake Ella, and we believe that we are all called to be good stewards of God's earth and want to encourage you to join this pledge of 100% renewable energy in Leon County by 2035. We're proud of the good work that the county has done to be more sustainable and think that this pledge will help our county lead the way in planning for a renewable energy future. Other major cities like Orlando, Atlanta, and Miami Beach have adopted this pledge and have made the statement that they are committed to transitioning to clean energy. I became engaged in the clean energy discussion because I am a mom, a Floridian, and a Christian who feels morally obligated to do everything I can to encourage my leaders to take action and move quickly on this problem of climate change. And I would encourage you to take this seriously and to not get hung up on the date, because a plan moving forward is a plan that puts us in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Administrator?
Thank you. And final speaker on this topic, and we've got one more after that, is Amy Datz, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. All right.
Name and address for the record, please, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Amy Datz, D-A-T-Z. I live at 1130 Crestview Avenue, Tallahassee, Florida, 32303. And I represent the Environmental Caucus of Florida. I am a retired environmental scientist. And so in that respect, I would offer my services if you want somebody to work with you on terms of developing this plan, or work with you in terms of reviewing it, or anything that I can do. I'd be really happy to help out. Commissioner Maddox, you're way too young to remember, but I remember, and some of the other people in the room will remember, when JFK said, we will go to the moon by the end of the decade. And he did. We did. So if we can go to the moon by the end of the decade, certainly we can get to 100% renewable by 2035. I think that's a smaller, more earthbound goal than getting to the moon. So I think we can do it, and hopefully you'll still be involved in the county at that point. I just spent a year in Israel, and they have to buy their oil from their enemies. Think about it. So every single person, every single home in Israel has a solar water heater. And they also have a bomb room, but we won't go there. But there's no reason why everyone in Tallahassee can't have a solar water heater. There's no reason that can't be developed and supported by the city and the county to do that. Look at this as a big challenge. This is a great opportunity for you. You can be a beacon among the other counties and other communities in Florida. So I just want to offer my support for the 2035 100% renewable, and offer my support and any help I can give you in the climate action plan. Thank you.
Any more speakers on this session?
That concludes the speakers on that topic. We've got one more.
Okay. Commissioner Dozier?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I also really appreciate the comments, and I know, I'm sure the others have. We've been getting a lot of emails from various folks, Bart, others about, and John, about the recent actions of the city. My only concern about your motion, Commissioner Lindley, I will support it if it's the will of the board to move forward with that. We have a very short amount of time. I think your motion is just to analyze the scorecard. Is that right? Or could you clarify that?
What the motion was is to include an interest, what everyone's brought forward this morning, to just evaluate it and see what the pledge is, and we just need to know a little bit more about it.
Okay. I'm sorry, your microphone wasn't on, so I'm not sure everyone heard you. But to review the pledge that the city made, is that right?
And what it would involve. I think we just need to drill down a little bit and know what we're talking about, what the county's role would be, how this would work for us. So that's, I just think we need more information. I don't think it's a lack of interest. But just honestly, to come here and say the city did it, you guys do it now, I just feel like I need more information. I need more understanding of what we can do in a very practical way.
Clarification. I want to make sure that we're all saying the same things in terms of what the city did. They directed their staff to come back with an analysis on the 100% renewable by 2035, which again we could include in the item that comes back to you all.
Commissioner Dozier?
So, Mr. Chair, just before joining the commission, I happily was involved in the beginning of Sustainable Tallahassee, and there was an idea of doing a community climate action plan. Mm-hmm. From my perspective, that is so much broader than just renewable energy. There are incentives in Atlanta and other places like that to look at green roofs and a light-colored roof to reflect the sunlight and improves efficiency. We haven't really looked at those types of incentives holistically for both city and county. There may be steps that we could take going into that. I also want to recognize that our sustainability office, led by Maggie Terrio under county administrator's direction for a long time, and now in facilities, we've saved a lot of money, correct, Mr. County Administrator, just by improving the efficiency of our buildings. I think we've got a lot of data now, 10 years of how we've done these different things. I would love for everyone to have a solar water heater, but when we're also facing an affordable housing shortage and things like that, there's a lot of challenges right now. So I think a longer term, more holistic plan is what I would love to see a conversation about. I think the renewables is a good piece of that puzzle, but as you correctly said, we don't have a utility. I think talking with Talquin and others providers is really key on that piece. And there's also going to be a proposal coming forward after the beginning of the year to do a community solar project, a cooperative, and we have not seen that take off in our communities. So what I would really like to see as part of the agenda item, and I think this is in line with what you're asking for, Commissioner Lindley, is a section in that agenda for us to talk about what we would like to see in a community dialogue about this subject, the issues that might be on the table, and particularly what the county role is there. But I will echo your comments that I think it's going to be challenging for us to join a city plan that has yet to be presented to the city commission and may be really focused on the utilities. So I would rather us initiate a broader conversation and invite the city and others, to join in that conversation. So if we can dive into that more in that agenda item when we review the information and then maybe get some direction to staff for what to bring back, that the timing of that may work alongside what the city staff is doing, looking at renewables. Those are my comments, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. So what I'm hearing here is broad support for the idea of a plan, but it's all about process, correct?
It's always about process.
Always about process.
Of course.
Commissioner Pride, you have the floor.
Chairman, yes, sir. When the city is the primary provider of utilities, their report could well be self-serving. And I doubt if the city would come up with a report that would take revenue and food off their own tables. So this report would need to be broad, and someone who does not have a financial interest in the outcome of one product versus another, or one approach versus the other. The sale of electricity is a taxable instrument in our community. And when you use utilities and as a significant source of general revenue funds to fund government services, I can't see how an objective viewpoint from what the city is reviewing, because their finances is so inextricably tied to its financial profiting. So someone mentioned the word Utility Review Board, something which since 1994 I've asked our community to pursue. Our city is not interested in an independent utility review board because they set the meter rates, the meters, set the rate and everything. And I just think that this is an albatross that we just can't seem to get free from. And that's the city's unitary authority over utilities. And I don't think the city should be involved in this look. I think that it should be something independently driven. And if we have the expertise in this community that doesn't have a financial interest, but we can't even get the city to give us a decent utility review board that allows someone who is not paid by the city to make serious decisions about utility. And I find that tragic. And so I'm suspect and skeptical about anything that the city is leading and talking about that's about utilities that ain't self-serving. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Pryor. Any more speakers before we take up the motion? Motion made by Commissioner Lindley was for analysis to be brought back on this specific subject in our December the 3rd meeting. There were some amendments to that motion by Commissioner Dozier. No? Or you like the motion as is?
Mr. Chair, I'm fine with the motion as is because I think it's just a general look at where the city is and opening that dialogue about where we want to go in the future. Is that correct, Commissioner Lindley? Yeah.
That's correct.
More inclusive, not just renewable energy, but just a more holistic look at it as a part of what we already had coming, which was our own climate plan, our own energy plan here in the county. So we would just open it up and I think find out what we could do, what might be possible, not. And I agree with you, Bart, on can't get too hung up on the days exactly and the specific goals, but get started and, we want to find some real ways to do this. So for me, just taking a pledge doesn't mean much. It's got to have some teeth in it. So that's where I'm ready to go.
Brian, I think you can find some kind of comfort in, since I've been here since 2010, this is kind of the attitude this board has taken to us getting started. So to those who came and spoke, don't take us not immediately adopting this as us not getting started. We like to start with information first, and I'm proud of our board's stance on getting the information and then making a decision on the information that we see. Commissioner, do you have something else?
Mr. Vice Chair, just a clarification. It's December 12th, just
December
for the
12th.
record?
Yes.
You had said December 3rd, but it is December 12th, is that correct?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Motion made. Ms. Voss, you understand the motion on the floor? Motion made by Mr. Lindley, seconded by myself, Vice Chair. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion objection with Commissioner Deloge, Commissioner Jackson, and Chairman Daley out of chambers. Mr. Administrator.
Your final speaker is Dr. Edward Holyfield.
Dr. Holyfield, name and address for the record, please, sir.
you should have it committed to memory by now, but it's Dr. Hollifield, Longleaf Court. Again, pardon my voice. I've been yelling at too many politicians. But I hadn't planned to talk at all about utilities. Perhaps this is a golden historical moment so far as black folks are concerned. Because we don't trust the city when it comes to utilities. We don't trust local government, period. In 1947, there was a utilities tax by the city, 10%. 10% utilities tax. Y'all can learn a little about Tallahassee history. That was used to build Tallahassee Memorial Hospital, in part. So everybody had to pay a tax, 10%. But guess what they told black people? Laurie Dozier Sr., Old Man Dozier, got together with a bunch of other people, said, we're going to build a hospital. But guess what? We're going to keep black folks out of it. So they used our tax money to build Tallahassee Memorial and turned around and said, although you Negroes paid the tax, you can't come up in here. We would rather you die than come up in here. And I guarantee you, people did die as a consequence. So we're very skeptical of anything involving taxes coming out of the city. And I think for good reason. But that's not really what I came up here to talk about. There's so many things going on in this town. We met over at the Junior Museum about this blueprint madness. They're supposed to be taking up the speed bumps. I said, has anybody thought about the children on Longleaf, on Lake Bradford? Basically, Lake Bradford, near those speed bumps, that's a bus stop. That's a bus stop. Now, I know there's a discounted value of black life in this town, but most of the children getting on and off those buses are either brown or black. And you take up them speed bumps, you're going to have cars going 70 miles an hour, rushing to the airport, trying to take airplanes to the Middle East. So, like I said, this whole thing about Blueprint, a number of other things that are going on in this town, increasing rates of poverty. You go back from 1995 to 2015, poverty in this town increased from 16% to 22%. With all these expenditures, all this so-called magnificent development, well, the question that I would like to leave y'all with is, what good is development if all of the benefits go to the top 1%? And you still have a 25% childhood hunger rate in Leon County. You still have an 80% childhood poverty rate in South City. And now we got Big Ben Cares banning people. That's what they used to do in South Africa. I'm banned, but they're the second person banned by Sylvia Hubbard because the Democrat hadn't reported by Big Ben Cares. Sylvia Hubbard has now been banned by Big Ben Cares. Who's next? Anybody who criticizes them? Anybody who reports on all that contamination they had over there? Y'all didn't report on it. I reported on it. And who are they going to ban next? Proctor, are you next? I mean, you criticized them. You protested. You told people they shouldn't even go to Big Ben Cares. Are they next going to ban you? They're going to ban Bill Tucker? They're going to ban anybody that criticizes them? So I think there's one underlying theme regarding the hell that black people catch in Leon County. And that one underlying theme, whether you talk about infant mortality, whether you talk about maternal mortality, nobody talks about that. Why is Whole Child Leon not talking about maternal mortality? That's why I now call him Half Child Leon, because they get it right about half the time. But the underlying principle regarding what black folks have to deal with in this town is the discounted value of black life. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Holyfield. Any more speakers, Mr. Administrator? We have no more speakers. Commissioner Proctor, you're in queue, I believe.
Chairman Maddox, I want to tell Dr. Holyfield that, Dr. Holyfield, you can disregard that letter that you received banning you, and you have my permission to go to Big Ben Cares when you get ready. Big Ben Cares receives federal money. It receives our money. It gets your money. And I'm telling you, I'm the District 1 Commissioner. I don't know any authority that they have to ban you. So you go to Big Ben Cares. You have my permission, okay?
Do you get me out of jail?
You going to jail on what purpose? For what? That sheet of paper does not mean anything. It's a sheet of paper. It expresses that they don't want you there, but there's no legal basis for which you can be denied. Rob Rentz is paid by, he's paid by money that this commission has agreed to allow him to receive to the tune of $375,000 a year. And you're a citizen who've helped to pay that. So you're going down there and you're a doctor. I mean, a doctor can't come to a health facility? You have my permission to go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, or Vice Chair. Excuse me, I'm elevating you a couple meetings in advance probably there. I know it's late, and forgive me a couple of comments. Dr. Holyfield, I have sat quietly as you raised my great-grandfather's name in meeting after meeting after meeting. And aside from the individual issues, I just, at this point, at a county commission meeting, I feel like making one comment. We were a segregated community at that time, and we need to recognize that terrible past here in our community, in our nation. And we also need to recognize, and I think as many meetings as you've been in, I hope you would know that our entire board recognizes we still face a lot of challenges. And we are talking about these issues on a weekly basis in all of our meetings. What I know to be fact is that my great-grandfather helped black families outside of TMH. He wasn't a perfect man. He was a Southern man. He was part of the culture. But he instilled in his children a different belief, and they weren't perfect. And his grandchildren, my parents' generation, got even better, and they passed it on to my generation. And I understand why I believe you've locked onto his name and to TMH, and I don't believe this is going to change it. I believe you will bring up his name in the future. But not everybody was the same or is the same, and I think we have to celebrate how far our community has come and how much work there is still to do, and that we are all in this together. And for once, Mr. Vice Chair of the Board, I just had to make that statement because you continually raise his name, and there is a much bigger story to everything we talk here than what we can get out in 3 minutes or in any commission meeting. And I do think we're making a lot of progress, but we should never forget where we've been because that's how we keep moving forward. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. I have no more commissioners in queue to speak. Is there any more business before the County Commission, Mr. Administrator? Motion to adjourn. We are adjourned.